Hi, I'm Natalie Grace. I play Katie in Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. I'm so excited to be joined by today's guests. Today I'm talking to Natalie Grace, who plays Katie in Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Natalie, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, so excited to have you on the show. I'm going to give everyone a fair spoiler warning. We are definitely going to get into spoilers here, so make sure you guys have seen the movie. I imagine a lot of you guys have, but yeah, as far as just, first question I wanted to ask you, Natalie, can you talk about just the process of being transformed into a mummy for this movie? Because I'm sure it was a pretty lengthy process.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I did as soon as I booked the role was I went to LA for a makeup test. I think that took from the morning all the way to 5 o'clock. Like it was a very long makeup test. They wanted to do photos and figure out the look. And then what came of that was three different stages for the makeup throughout the entire film. So it starts with, we kind of called it like, we had one and then we had like 1A and 1B because there's a little bit of like some changes. And then two and then three is the final look where I'm fully mummified and covered in blood constantly. But that was the first kind of taste of any prosthetics that I'd ever done before. Didn't have any experience in that. So that was kind of a crazy way to start. And
Yeah.
then I also had a whole month of training physically before really any of the other cast got there. I worked with the stunt team very closely to learn all of the stunts because I wanted to do as many as I could. I did all of them except for two in the whole film.
Wow.
And then I had to also just like learn the physicality of the character and figure out what we wanted that to look like too.
Well, as far as like the transformation, what was the most, because I know you said this was your first time really doing kind of prosthetics and things like that, which is pretty crazy for your first film to get thrown into this. What was the most like challenging part as far as the makeup and the prosthetics for you?
I don't really like anything on my skin like that to begin with, so I think just whenever they would put the back piece on, I would have to, the glue is so cold and sticky, and it's like 3 a.m. when we get there because we had to start so early because they would want to start at like 8 a.m. and the makeup takes 6 to 8 hours every day. So I would really just have to like meditate and not think about the fact that it was on my skin. But then once it got on, it felt very kind of like protective and I got very used to it. And when I didn't have it on over the weekend when we weren't shooting, I would have like ghost prosthetics and I would still feel like they were on me, even though
Okay.
they weren't.
Yeah, to kind of get yourself used to kind of being like that. Now, as far as just playing this character, how did you kind of prepare yourself to get into the mindset of playing this demon that's possessing this girl for the film?
I had a lot of conversations with Lee about how we wanted to present that because you're kind of playing two characters at the same time because it's still her body and her mind, but she's kind of stuck in the very back of it. If you picture it like this, she's right there, and then the demon's overtaken the entire other part of her brain. And she's been in a coma for so long that when she wakes up, in my mind, it's kind of still as if she were eight and young Katie because she hasn't had any time to form or grow. So the glimpses that we see of Katie is still that, and then the rest is just fully demon, slowly but surely growing in strength and figuring out the way that this family works so that it can manipulate them and kill some of them.
How big of a horror fan were you kind of coming into this movie?
I had not watched any scary movies before
Wow.
this. Um, like I'd seen a few, but I just was really bad about that. I was very easily scared of everything. I'm a completely different person now. I love them now. I think the filming process really interested me in the way that they're created. So now I love to watch them and kind of think about like, oh, I wonder if that's how they did that or how that works or how they did those prosthetics. But during the filming, I started to watch a few, and once I got back from filming, I've watched so many. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you, so was there, so it sounds like probably not, but did you reference any other horror films as far as how you wanted to portray this character, the possession aspect of it?
I've read a few things where they're comparing me to Exorcist and comparing the whole movie to Exorcist. I had never seen that. I think I watched that once I started seeing those. I watched The Exorcist last weekend for the first time. So I had no knowledge of any type of possession movie. I knew of them obviously, but I didn't want to take any ideas from things that were already created. I wanted me and Lee to focus on creating this new character and I wanted all of it to come from my brain and his ideas.
And as far as this is a very physical role, where did you draw inspiration from as far as how you wanted to figure out how Katie was going to move, but also react in specific scenes in the movie?
Lee specified that she starts in a catatonic state. I researched a lot about that and we focused on starting there. And then from there, I kind of just used what I would assume would be like, I think she would have like a lot of clicks in her wrist. I know you see like the wrist movements a lot. I'm pretty double jointed, so it all came really naturally, weirdly. Um, and I also have a background in yoga. So just like any of the weird movements, there's a scene where I go into like what would be called a D pose in yoga when I like come off of the bed
Oh
after
yeah.
I've hit Carmen and they wanted me to use a harness for that, but it ended up just being me doing it because I was able to bend backwards more without the harness. So it all just kind of came from like my creation and whatever Lee wanted me to do. A lot of it was led by his ideas, and I would just kind of be he would come with me, they would come to me with the ideas, and then I would create them.
Sounds like it was just like a very collaborative process
Yes, yes.
between you guys, which is so cool that you had so much input into this character. Now, when you were reading the script for the first time, obviously there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens here in the movie. What was the scene in particular that when you read it, you were like, "Oh, I can't wait to film this and see how it translates to the screen"?
Probably the crawling on the ceiling scene. I was really excited about that. That was the first stunt that I learned too because they needed
Wow.
to show me the building blocks of that before I could even get up there and be completely upside down.
Yeah.
Um, so that I was really excited to do that. And that was one of the last scenes we filmed. It was in the later days of the shooting process. So the entire time I was practicing it, but I was just so excited to finally get to do it on the set. And it was so cool. I had to wait like all day to do it. They were filming other things. Like I really just wanted to be up there. And I think it only took a few takes, sadly. I wish we could have done it like all day because it's just so fun to do that. And then also we filmed the me coming out of the hole in the ceiling separately. But that was really fun too because I actually got to, they used wax, candle wax to create what looked like the wood. And I was actually able to like claw through it. So.
Okay, yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And I was going to ask you about that scene in particular, especially jumping down, landing in the casket, and then like drinking the embalming fluid.
Yeah.
What were you actually drinking there on the floor there?
That was like a mixture of Jello and water,
Okay.
and it was raspberry flavored because I made the mistake of telling them that that was what I wanted it to be, but by the end of the shoot, there's no sweet tooth left in me. I cannot deal with any of that kind of stuff, and I shouldn't have told them to make it sweet. They were trying to be kind and help me, but like once you put it into you're thinking about it being embalming fluid and just all of this gross stuff. Like even with the throw up, it was sweet too. So I just can't anymore. But
Oh
it was
yeah, I don't.
raspberry flavored. And then what was coming out of her neck was too, and that was just rancid.
I can only imagine. We've been talking about just the special effects, the practical, the makeup and everything, which as a horror fan, I always love to see when you can do it on screen practical, always prefer that. How did those aspects really kind of help you immerse you into this world and into this character?
I mean, without it, I wouldn't have felt like the character at all. I think the first time they did the makeup, I literally just morphed into the character. It came so naturally and it really helped. Also, the many hours that I sat in the makeup chair, I think that was the perfect amount of time, shockingly, to get into the character. So by the time the makeup was done, I was fully mummified, fully mummy, ready to go. Um, so it really, really helped. And I find it very interesting how it made me feel very like vulnerable, but also very protected. And so like I was so opposite of what I usually am that I felt like I could be vulnerable in that way because I didn't look like myself at all.
And I thought that I was reading or saw in another interview that you suffer from claustrophobia, or maybe you might not anymore. So as far
That's
as how do you just kind of how did you prepare for a role like this where obviously you're wrapped up, you're covered in all this makeup and prosthetics, and at one point you're in a sarcophagus. So how did you kind of prepare for all that?
Yeah, I didn't know I was claustrophobic until that day that they were
Oh
like,
no.
now it's time to film the sarcophagus scene. And I was so involved in the character, in the shoot. It was the middle of the shoot. I was not thinking about I'm going to be laying on like a bed of rocks wrapped up in these little leather pieces and they're going to cover my face up and my ankles and wrists are tied and I can't move at all and I just have to lay there. And then it happened and I was like, "Oh, okay. I think I'm claustrophobic. This is making me feel panicked." And then the scene where I wake up is kind of just me having a panic attack because I was like,
Oh
okay,
man.
well, if I'm gonna feel panicked, let's just use it for the scene. And it worked great and it looked really cool. But thankfully, Lee kind of understood that I was not having the greatest time and we only did it a few times and I was able to get out. But yeah, no, I would not go into another sarcophagus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you there. I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to that kind of stuff either. So, I mean, props to you for being able to get through the shoot. And I love too that Lee was able to recognize that. And so that way you didn't have to do some of those specific scenes multiple times over and over again. Because
Yeah.
obviously sometimes it's like you have to shoot a scene from all these different angles to get the right shot. So I'm glad that you guys were able to kind of limit that for you. And
Mm.
a couple other scenes that I wanted to ask about specifically was one, the little piggy scene. When I tell you, Natalie, that when we just saw that in I don't know if it was in the trailer, but it was just like a little clip that I think got
Yeah.
released before the film
Mm.
came out. My fiance absolutely hated that. She was like, "Oh my God!" And I kept bringing it up, and she was like, "Please stop that." So can
Please
you talk
stop.
about filming that scene?
That was so fun. That was I auditioned with that scene.
Wow.
And to see the audition is so completely different than the final product of what's in the film. We did it separately. So Billy did her take of everything, and then and another day I did mine. And I just remember the day it happened, my contact kept falling out. And they were like size 20 contacts. They were huge. So anytime one of them would fall out, it would take at least like 10 minutes to get it back in because I hate anything near my eyes. So that was kind of a problem the whole shoot because
Yeah.
putting these contacts in, it was just terrifying. But once we got it back in, we we just played around with it. He had me do a lot of different variations of the lines, but I was already just so excited to do that scene because I auditioned with it and I thought it was so fun and so funny. And then he added the part, originally I wasn't supposed to like dive down into the door like that, and I didn't know how that was going to work. So that was really, really fun.
Yeah, that was one of the scenes that even creeped me out a little bit too. So hats off to you guys for that. And the other scene, obviously, I don't think anyone's going to look at toenail clippers, nail clippers ever the same again. So
No, probably
can you
not.
can you talk about what went into the filming of that scene as well?
That was a very critical scene. I think I can't speak for Lee, but I really think that was one of the most important scenes to him to get it right because he had such a clear idea for it. I remember we went through a lot of different gags with the skin ripping off. I had had so many layers of prosthetics on that day that I didn't even really like feel or comprehend what they were doing because they would do so many close-ups of the my toe. And I would just be holding my hot water bottles like shivering because it was freezing for some reason in Ireland that day. Um, and I just watched them do it over and over and over again until we were able to get it right. And it looks so good. It's so worth it. But even the part where I catch the toenail in my mouth, I was so grossed out to do that because obviously it's fake, but ugh, it's
It
just
looks
so
real.
gross.
Yeah, they definitely did a good job as far as, making that convincing. Again, another a great scene in the film. And the mummy itself is such an iconic character with so much rich history. What does it mean to be a part of that history now with your own version of this character?
It means so much. I would have never thought that this audition that I did last January would turn into such an incredible film and such an important film and such an important part of my life. I was very kind of, I didn't process the fact that it's already obviously a lot of movies have been made about the mummy, but a couple weeks ago it kind of hit me and I was like, "Oh wow, this is a very big deal and I'm kind of stepping into this whole universe that has already existed." And it was a lot of pressure, but I think that people have had a really positive response to it. And if they like scary, gory movies, then they're gonna like this. So I just keep trying to focus on that.
Yeah, how's it been too, just to see the fan reaction to the film since it's come out for you personally? Because I'm sure, yeah, you've been t tagged in a bunch of fan art, and I'm sure you'll see once we get closer to Halloween, probably a lot of costumes and things like that.
Oh, that would be crazy. I really hope someone does. That would just like be so funny if someone dressed up as the mummy. I think I had someone a couple days ago, I did another interview and they asked me if I would dress up for Halloween as the mummy. And I said yes, but I don't know if I would because I don't know if I would go through that many hours of prosthetics again.
Yeah.
But seeing other people, I wonder if like Spirit Halloween or any of the Halloween stores would make costumes. That would be so cool.
That would be cool. And I'm sure you could
Yeah.
probably maybe come up with a way too that obviously doesn't take quite as long to put that
As
all
long.
on for you. So yeah, you probably get creative with that.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but this was one of your first like major film
Yes.
roles, correct?
First major film role, first major film in general. Um, First big thing. Yeah, it just it all just kind of snowballed from just the audition. I didn't expect it to happen. I've always wanted to do this type of work and wanted to be in huge films, but I just never thought that the opportunity would be given.
How was it kind of stepping into this major role like this where you're pretty much the lead character of the film?
It took a lot to get used to that, and it pushed me in ways I never could have imagined. I grew so much just in those 4 months. People would joke that I had learned like 10 years of experience in just those 4 months because just all of the things that were incorporated, the prosthetics, the stunts, the acting, the physical and emotional toll that it took on me. But it was all so worth it. And it was just so, I always went to work so excited to do the scenes and to be a part of it. Even if I was tired of the makeup, I was just so grateful to have the opportunity to do such a role like that because it's really kind of like once in a lifetime where you can find a role where you can really dig your claws in and like go very deep into it.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, and I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see these because I know you said you've kind of really just started watching different horror films, and some of
Yeah.
these are more like action adventure. But do you have a favorite mummy played by someone else outside of Katie so far up to this point?
Oh, I need to watch all of them. I've watched a couple months ago I watched the first Mummy, like the first action, the Brendan Fraser
Brendan
one.
Fraser? Okay.
Oh, but also I watched the original one.
Boris
I
Karloff.
don't know if I ever, yes, I really liked that one, and I thought that ours was kind of as similar as it could be to the original,
Yeah.
if you want to compare them. And watching that after, because I watched it after I filmed, after I got back from filming, I was like, oh, I can kind of see like some similarities in this.
Yeah, no, and that's so cool. I was going to ask you, like, if you hadn't seen him yet, I was going to say, one, you got to watch Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. I
Yeah.
just saw the sequel just turned 25 years old this year, so I got to see that in
Hmm.
theaters back with some friends. But yeah, the original, the black and white Universal monster movie, that was
Yeah,
I pretty much I grew up. Those were kind of like some of the first horror movies that I ever saw as a kid. So
that's
I'm
so
glad that
sweet.
you were able to check those out.
Mhm.
And just to yeah, to wrap things up for you, Katie, is there anything else as far as that you'd just like to say about the experience of working on the film and where can people stay up to date with you moving forward in the future?
Oh yeah, okay. I just made a TikTok and I have an Instagram. They're the same username. It's just Natty underscore Grace underscore. So you can find me on either of those if you want.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I'll make sure to put those down below in the description and anything else you'd like to say to the fans before we go.
Just thank you so much for loving the movie and watching it. And I've been seeing a lot of people say that they are regretting bringing food watching the film. So maybe don't bring snacks because people are getting nauseous.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those films, and it was so cool too, kind of tying into. I was just thinking of the food aspect with Evil Dead, but the fact that I saw Lee talking about how this film, in his mind, takes place in the same universe as Evil Dead, and I
Yeah,
believe he said like the archaeologist or something has the same name as one of the characters, which
yeah.
I think is so cool. So
Mhm.
I guess another question, just as far as If Lee was to do another Evil Dead film, is that something, would you love to be involved in something like that now having your first experience with the Mummy?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I think that would be so much fun and probably so much more blood than what was already used on the set for the Mummy. I would love to do an Evil Dead film. Yeah.
But at least you got the experience now, so you kind of know
Yeah,
what to expect.
I would
Uh,
be prepared.
but yeah, Natalie, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on the film, and you are welcome back anytime in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Natalie Grace. I play Katie in Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.